Here's something that'll mess with your head a little. There was a moment, not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, where you wouldn't have been the only kind of human on the planet. Not different races, not different cultures, literally different species of humans, walking the same land, hunting the same animals, looking across the same valleys at each other. At one point, researchers think there were at least 5 or 6 different human species alive at the same time. Us, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, the tiny species found on a small island in Indonesia, possibly others we haven't even discovered yet. Today, there's just one, us. Every single one of those other species, gone. And here's the question that nobody really wants to sit with. What did we have to do with that? Let's start with the big one, the uncomfortable one, because that question isn't just about ancient bones and fossils. If the answer is yes, if our species systematically wiped out other human species, that says something pretty heavy about what we actually are at our core. So let's look at the real evidence, not the sanitized version. Neanderthals weren't primitive cave dwellers grunting at each other. These were people. Their brains were as large as ours, sometimes bigger. They built sophisticated tools. They cared for their sick and injured. There are Neanderthal skeletons with fully healed injuries, injuries that would have taken months of help from others to survive. They buried their dead. Some evidence even suggests they made art. These weren't simple creatures. They were people. And then, roughly 40,000 years ago, right around the time modern humans showed up in Europe in big numbers, they disappeared. That's not a coincidence that's easy to ignore. Now, the most dramatic theory is direct violence. Modern humans arrived, conflict broke out, and we won. Here's the truth, though. The fossil evidence for large-scale organized violence is thin, really thin. There are some Neanderthal bones with trauma marks, but separating killed by modern humans from killed by another Neanderthal, from killed by a really bad fall, from this bone got crushed underground for 40,000 years, that's genuinely hard science. Does that mean it didn't happen? No. Violence that unfolds over thousands of years across an entire continent doesn't leave a neat crime scene. The absence of obvious evidence doesn't equal innocence. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Neanderthal DNA is in your body right now, not as some faint trace, as a measurable, functional chunk of your genome. If your ancestry is from outside of sub-Saharan Africa, and most Americans have at least some of that, somewhere between 1 and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Let that land for a second. That means at some point, modern humans and Neanderthals didn't just fight. They had kids together. Those kids survived. And those kids had kids. And eventually, here you are, carrying a little bit of Neanderthal biology in every single cell of your body. Groups that are in pure, all-out war don't produce viable children together. So whatever the relationship was between our species and theirs, it wasn't just conflict. It was complicated. So if it wasn't just violence, what else was going on? Here's the theory that almost nobody talks about, but might actually be the biggest factor: disease. When modern humans migrated out of Africa, they brought with them thousands of years of exposure to pathogens, viruses, bacteria, things their immune systems had, through brutal natural selection, figured out how to fight. Neanderthals had never seen any of it. Think about what happened when Europeans arrived in the Americas. Indigenous populations lost sometimes 90% of their people, not to weapons, to disease. Illnesses that the newcomers barely noticed were devastating to populations with no prior exposure. The same thing very likely happened here. A modern human didn't need a weapon to be dangerous. They just needed to show up. And the brutal part? You can't see disease in a fossil. The Neanderthal who died of an introduced infection 3 months after crossing paths with a modern human looks identical in the fossil record to one who lived to old age. It leaves no trace. There's also competition. And this one is sneaky because it doesn't require anyone to be trying to hurt anyone. Modern humans and Neanderthals needed the same things: caves, large game, fresh water, specific landscapes. But modern humans had some serious advantages. Our social networks were bigger and covered way more territory. There's evidence, actual physical evidence, of modern humans trading materials like shells and pigments across hundreds of miles. Neanderthal trade networks appear to have been much more local. Why does that matter? Because bigger networks mean better information, knowing where the herds moved, where the good hunting was, and in hard times, having people far away who could help you out. Modern humans also likely had better projectile technology, spear throwers, eventually bows. That means hunting from distance with less risk, more efficiently. If modern humans were even slightly more effective at getting food in the same landscape over thousands of years, the population math gets brutal. Neanderthal groups get pushed to worse and worse territory, smaller populations, more fragile, until eventually they can't bounce back from a bad winter. Nobody had to decide to wipe them out. The system did it. Now let's talk about the Denisovans, because this story is wild. We didn't find them from a skeleton. We found them from a finger bone and a couple of teeth in a cave in Siberia. The DNA from those tiny fragments revealed an entire human species that nobody knew existed. And just like the Neanderthals, their DNA is still with us. If you have ancestry from East Asia, Southeast Asia, or the Pacific, especially Aboriginal Australians or people from Papua New Guinea, you carry Denisovan DNA. Some populations carry more Denisovan DNA than Neanderthal. Here's the crazy part. Some of that DNA is still helping people today. Tibetan people have a genetic variant that lets them live and work at extreme high altitudes, elevations that would leave most of us gasping. That variant? Denisovan origin. An extinct species that vanished thousands of years ago is still, right now, helping people survive on top of mountains. They're gone, but they're not entirely absent. And then there's Homo floresiensis, the one they nicknamed the Hobbit, because apparently scientists have a sense of humor. This species survived on a small island in Indonesia until about 50,000 years ago. Then modern humans showed up in the region, and they were gone. Island ecosystems are fragile, smaller populations, fewer resources. A new competitor or a new disease hits much harder when you're already isolated and limited. We don't know exactly what happened. The honest answer is we might never know, but the pattern is undeniable. Over and over and over again, a human species that had survived for hundreds of thousands of years disappears shortly after modern humans arrive. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. So here's the real answer, the one that doesn't fit cleanly on a bumper sticker. Did we kill the other human species? Probably yes. In some ways, in some places, at some times. But not through some organized campaign of extermination, something messier, more diffuse, and honestly, more disturbing because of it. We brought disease they had no defense against. We outcompeted them for resources without even trying. We interbred with them, absorbed some of their biology, but not enough to save them. And in specific moments, in specific places, some of us probably killed some of them directly. The result, across tens of thousands of years, was the same everywhere. They vanished. We didn't. There's a version of this story where you feel okay about it. Natural competition, survival of the fittest, evolution doing what evolution does. But there's another version, and I think it's the more honest one, where this is the first chapter of a pattern our species has been running ever since, where what looked like progress came at a cost we never really had to look in the eye. We were never alone on this planet. We just made sure we would be.